The winter wind slammed against the cracked windows of the small diner, rattling them as if demanding to be let in. Inside, under the dim yellow lights that flickered every few minutes, a tired single father named Evan Parker sat hunched over a simple plate of scrambled eggs he could barely afford. His hands were rough from long shifts, his eyes heavy with exhaustion, but nothing, absolutely nothing, prepared him for the moment two tiny voices tugged at the threads of his fading strength. He looked up and froze, his breath catching in his throat, because standing beside his table were two identical little girls, no more than 6, their cheeks red from the cold, their sweaters too thin for the December night in Ohio, and their hopeful eyes fixed on his plate as they softly asked if they could eat with him. If you believe in kindness, compassion, and second chances, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. It truly helps us keep creating meaningful stories for you. The question shattered something in Evan. He had come into the diner for the cheapest meal on the menu, trying to stretch the last $20 from his paycheck while figuring out how to make it through the week. Just months ago, his world had fallen apart after losing both his wife to a sudden illness and his job at the auto plant. He was now juggling construction gigs, parenting alone, and barely keeping a roof over his son Noah's head. The last thing he expected that night was for two hungry children to approach him with eyes full of silent pleading, eyes that reminded him too much of his own child when he asked questions Evan didn't always have answers for. As he scanned the room, he saw no adult with them, no guardian watching from nearby, just the twins standing there, shivering slightly, clutching each other's hands as though they were afraid he might tell them to go away. Evan felt an ache rise in his chest, deeper and heavier than any burden he had carried in months. He had been struggling to hold himself together in the quiet loneliness of his nights after work, questioning whether he was failing his son, wondering how much more hardship he could endure. He knew too well the sting of hunger, the uncertainty of tomorrow, and the helplessness of watching a child suffer. The twins' presence brought all those truths to the surface like a crushing wave. He hesitated for a moment, not because he didn't want to help, but because he genuinely didn't know if he could. He barely had enough for himself. But the longer he looked into the girl's eyes, the more impossible it became to turn away. Something inside him urged him to do what little he could, even if it meant sacrificing the comfort he didn't really have. When he motioned for them to sit, the girls moved carefully, almost shyly, slipping onto the booth's vinyl seats as though afraid someone would stop them. Evan noticed how their fingers trembled when they placed them on the table, and how they watched every plate that passed by, their hunger too obvious to hide. He waved at the waitress, a middle-aged woman who had seen him struggle over the months but never judged him. She raised an eyebrow in curiosity as he quietly pointed to the menu and asked for 2 kids' meals. He didn't know how he would make it financially after this, but in that moment, it didn't matter. The girls' faces lit up, not with excitement, but with relief, deep, humble relief that spoke of days spent without enough food. As they ate, Evan's curiosity grew. He learned their names were Chloe and Hannah, twin sisters who had been walking around town for hours looking for someone who looked nice enough. Their mother, overwhelmed with 2 jobs and surviving in a cheap motel, had left them alone longer than she intended after her evening shift ran late. They were supposed to wait for her at the corner near the bus stop, but when she didn't appear, the cold became unbearable. Hunger pushed them inside the diner. Listening to them, Evan felt something twist painfully inside him, not judgment, not anger, but empathy rooted in the shared struggle of parents trying to survive poverty's suffocating grip. The girls told him about their mother, Sarah, a woman trying to rebuild a life after escaping a harmful marriage, fighting every day to give her daughters a safer world. Evan felt his eyes burn with emotion, remembering his late wife, the dreams they once had, the home they had tried to build together. Life had stripped both households down to the bones, and now, sitting with these 2 little strangers, Evan realized that hardship linked people in ways money never could. When he offered to walk them back to their motel, they nodded eagerly. Snow had begun to fall when they stepped outside, drifting in gentle waves under the streetlights. The walk was quiet, but the twins stayed close to him, trusting him with a sort of innocence that humbled him. At the motel door, a woman rushed out, panic etched across her face, tears spilling the moment she saw her daughters. The reunion struck Evan harder than he expected. It reminded him of the love he carried for his own boy, the fear of losing him, the fragile thread that ties a parent's heart to their child's safety. Sarah immediately apologized, overwhelmed and embarrassed, explaining that her second job had delayed her, that she had run all the way from the bus stop after realizing her girls weren't there. Evan reassured her, insisting that she had nothing to apologize for. They stood there for a few minutes, speaking quietly, sharing stories of the battles they fought daily. She was surprised to learn he was struggling too, because kindness often hides behind tired eyes. Before he left, she thanked him repeatedly, her gratitude trembling in her voice. Walking back home that night, snowflakes landing softly on his worn jacket, Evan felt something shift inside him. The weight he carried didn't disappear, but it felt different, lighter somehow, reshaped by the understanding that he wasn't alone, that there were others fighting just as hard to stay afloat. When he reached his apartment, he checked on Noah, gently brushing the boy's hair as he slept. He realized that although life had pushed him to the edge, moments like this reminded him of the goodness still left in the world, the kind that appears quietly when least expected. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. It helps more people receive these emotional true-to-life stories. Before we end, please comment below with one thing you're grateful for today. And so, on that snowy night in Ohio, a single father found hope again, not through money or miracles, but through two hungry little girls who unknowingly reminded him that kindness, even in small doses, can change the course of someone's life.